on my farm, but for you, if you're doing this, it's basically on all farms. We've got deteriorating soil conditions in once very productive land. Back when I started, so this slide's kind of, I guess, a little steered for me. There were very few products. You can always skip this one if you want to. There were very few products available at the time. What was around was expensive, no scientifically backed products, and results were very inconsistent. So this is back in the early 2000s. So you could really just start with this slide if you want. So 2017, was our first year going. Provide a solution to achieve higher production, repair compacted soil, and address poor soil structure, increase nutrient efficiency, and improve the balance. Address water logging, poor moisture retention, educate on soil health, and create long-term profitability. So those are the reasons why soil health is important, or why maybe you got started with us. The company, so we always say the crop aid difference. We got that on our radio ads. Come see the crop aid difference. So the crop aid difference is, we're founded by farmers, brought to the market by farmers, owned by a farmer. We're the only soil health company that's farmer owned. Everything else is investor owned. So we understand the problems and the challenges of farmers. All of our employees at farm use our products, and everyone involved has high expectations for product performance. And of course, manufactured locally, which is more important than ever. Again, with the crop aid difference, we have a policy of transparency, so full legal labels, no proprietary information. What's in the product is on the label, scientifically backed. We don't need farmer testimonials because we have the science that says this is what happens when you put this ingredient on the soil every time. So we're disclosing everything, fully backed by science, and the products that require CFIA registration, which is the Crop Aid Seed Plus and the Crop Aid Plus, are fully registered. Our other products that are not required to have registration still get submitted to CFIA. They still make us do the quality control, the good manufacturing processes. They vet our label and make sure it's a full legal label, properly structured and all that. And so other than the piece of paper that says we're registered, we've gone through all the hoops. They make us send in lab reports. So like the Foliars, for instance, don't require CFIA registration, but we got to have lab results so that we're showing we don't have any heavy metals in there or toxins or anything like that. So it's very good to do. Results-oriented trials. So of course, with lots of third-party replicated trials, lots of university trials. We want to prove consistent results. We take that trial data as we receive it and post it on the website. We don't shiny it up or summarize it, make our own little nice report. We just post it on the website like we get it. So trying to be as transparent as possible. When you're doing the PowerPoint presentation for farmers, we can talk a little bit more about the club root research. That's not something we're doing out in public or on the radio, but we can do it at a meeting. And that's at the end of the thing here anyways. And then of course we're working with Alberta, Innotech, Lakeland College, U of S. Here's also part of the crop aid difference. This is a challenge. It's both on the farmer side and the company side. The education part, the industry message is pretty muddled out there right now, has always been. We've got, you go to a trade show, how many soil health companies is there? There could be 15 different soil health companies. Everybody's saying the same thing and saying, oh, don't buy from that guy, it doesn't work. And basically we get to the point where the farmers are just going, it's all too hard, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. So it's our job as crop aid to educate. So we do as many farmer meetings as we can, and we explain how we're different, why we're different, and why what we're doing is far superior. So a lot of companies out there over-promising and under-delivering. So overpriced product with poor results, no data, no CFIA registration. We do the crop checks and the service part. There's no other company doing that. So we're really trying to set ourselves apart. We don't ever need to cut down another company. All we need to do is talk about our points of difference and what we're doing, because no one else can talk like we can. So the products, not a complicated product list. I always mention that I don't like companies with 70 different products that are almost all the same. No, you know, which ones do you use? It's just too hard. So we're just going to have a really good small core amount of products that do fantastic jobs. So we just have the seed, which is a seed primer. We have the Seed Plus, which is the exact same seed primer with mycorrhizal fungi spores added. We have the Crop Aid Plus, which is our core product, the soil biostimulant, soil health product. We have 2 foliar fertilizers, the Rebound and the React. They're high quality chemical foliar fertilizers, and we add amino acids to them, something no one else is doing in the industry right now. Citric acid is our water conditioner, and we'll have to adjust this slide, Calvin, and add SS onto there. This is our next product. The Seed Plus, and the Crop Aid Plus do share a couple of the active ingredients. So that's the lignin and the kelp extracts. And the kelp is another word for seaweed extracts. So these products either supply directly or through the biology supply and provide nutrients at critical early growth stages, stimulate beneficial biology, increase activity in the rhizosphere. And the rhizosphere, here's a spot where we can say, okay, what's a rhizosphere? Well, the rhizosphere is formed by biology. It's the colonies of biology that wrap around your root hairs and your roots and look like cocoons, basically hiding your roots and your seeds from the field, right? They're wrapped into this rhizosphere, a cocoon. That plant and that root can't even see the soil anymore. It just sees the inside of that rhizosphere, which is pH neutral. The water's pH neutral. The minerals that are in there are already converted to plant available. So it's a much better growing atmosphere than naked roots seeing the soil conditions. Again, these products are for help feed growth until larger nutrient gathering roots development. So that's more for the seed product there. When we're actually putting a nutrient pack right on the seed, we're gonna feed that plant and actually soak nutrients right through the seed coat and feed that thing until it grows a root system and can start gathering on its own. So we'll get into that a little more, but the seed product, you know, the Crop Aid Plus is the whole season. The seed product is for the first 30 days. So on our main active, lignin, research findings of ammonium lignosulfonate, ALS, it causes a huge rise in beneficial soil bacteria. On average, over 325 times increase, and that's in 14 days. Bacteria benefits, it's the only organism that converts nutrients to plant available forms. Helps reduce soil pathogens from 10 to 100 fold in those same 14 days. Kelp extract benefits, they help free nutrients tied up in the soil. Enrich the rhizosphere with nutrients, conditioners, growth stimulants, biostimulant for strong plants with healthy growth. If we back up to this other slide here, that might be a good spot when you're saying ALS. Nobody knows what ammonium lignosulfonate is, so it could be a good spot to say, okay, now ALS is from the pulping industry. So when a fresh cut tree goes to the pulp mill, this is a byproduct. So it's a plant-based carbon, but it's fresh plant-based carbon with energies. It's a living carbon. It's from a living plant, and it's very much the energies that provide the signal to the biology to get out of dormancy. So it's a big difference in the type of carbon we're using than any other competitor company is using, where they're mostly using mineral-based carbons with no energies because they're 1 million years old. So we did that one. Okay, so the seed and the Seed Plus now. Carbon-based liquid solutions. They're meant to supplement and maximize a standard fertility program, enhance germination and vigor, and protect against soil pathogens and stress. This product is meant to get your crop off to the best first 30 days. It's the first 30 days of your crop that dictate the maximum yield potential. From there, it just goes down. So the better start we get, the better chance we have at a high yielding crop. There is no replacing or repairing a poor start to a crop. No matter what we do to it, once we have that poor start, we're married to that for the season. The crop aid seed ingredients, got the lignin extract, the kelp extract, we have the macronutrients, NPKs, and we have micronutrients essential for good germination and vigor. If you want, you can explain what the EDTA means here. So EDTA is a chemical abbreviation for an organic acid. So basically you take iron, manganese, zinc, and you take, it would have come in a oxide or a sulfate form, and you're going to put that through an organic acid process. And what that does is it wraps an organic bond around the molecules of the iron, the zinc, and the manganese. Anything with an organic bond around the atom can easily go through the waxy coating of a leaf. Anything without it has a much harder time to get into the leaf and get absorption. So we only use EDTA products. We also add amino acids to these products as well, because that is an organic acid as well. So we want to get everything with that organic bond around it so we can get it into your seed coat and into your young plant as early as possible. And by the way, the boron's not EDTA because boron already comes in an acid form. So you can't make it EDTA. The 4 strains of mycorrhizal fungi, we're actually 5 strains now. We've just submitted the paperwork to CFIA so we can do a label change. So we actually have a 5th strain in there now. Most other companies will offer 1 or 2. We got 5. Everything we could possibly grow in North America is covered under the 5 strains. Lignin extract and kelp extract are our 2 main actives. And then of course, the macro and micronutrients, all the same as the other one except the strains of fungi. The Crop Aid Seed Plus. Now, here's the benefits of mycorrhizal fungi, whether we're putting the spores right on the seed or whether we're getting mycorrhizal fungi out of dormancy with the Crop Aid soil health product, the Crop Aid Plus, the benefits are the same. So basically they extend the root system by creating hyphae, so they join onto the roots or the colonies, and they make hyphae tubes meters and meters into the soil, bringing back water and non-plant available nutrients to the colonies to refine, to trade to the plants. Mycorrhizal fungi is responsible for over 50% of the uptake of phosphorus in plants. Helps absorb more water, which increases plant water uptake, improves soil structure, and contribute to soil aggregation. The mycorrhizal fungi are the creatures in the soil that are responsible for soil structure. We have very little mycorrhizal fungi action working on most of our fields, and therefore we get compaction creeping in over time. So when we can add it or get them out of dormancy, it makes a massive difference on soil structure, and we'll get into that in a little bit, how that works. Helps plants resist and overcome pathogen infections, and basically how it does that, so this is the seed product, right? We're going to put that nutrient pack and that biostimulant right on the seed. We're going to drop it into the soil, and as soon as it hits the soil, that biology is going to, that biostimulant is going to get the biology right around that seed out of dormancy, and it's going to build its cocoon or rhizosphere around the seed, and we're going to hide that seed from the field. And we basically shut all the windows and doors, so there's no entryways for pathogens to get to that seedling or that new little shoot or that seed. And that's how we protect them. Application and timing. As with most seed products, we can mix with fungicides, pesticides, inoculants. We can apply anytime pre-seeding. We say 120 days, but it's probably a bigger window than that. Doesn't activate until it's planted. It won't dust off if through augering. Application rate is 100 mil a bushel. You may need to add water if you need better coverage. So if you're going on like a barley, you may add up to actually another 100%, another 100 mil of water in some cases. And in some cases, 100 mil is plenty, like if we're going on to lentils or something, that's plenty. Container sizes, 10-liter jugs, 500 or 1,000-liter totes. And then this is where when we start talking about containers, I always mention, products are delivered to farm. So the Crop Aid Plus, the biostimulant, again, CFIA registered product, carbon-based liquid solution. It activates biology that provides essential nutrients to emerging plants, maximizes root growth, increases the nutrient uptake. The product enhances beneficial microorganisms in the soil, promotes beneficial microorganisms on the plant as well, acts as a fertilizer catalyst and reduces fertilizer losses, makes tied up applied fertilizer more available. And I think it's that slide there. Yeah. So when I'm on that slide, I usually stop here, and then, because we're talking about fertilizer catalysts and reducing fertilizer losses and making fertilizer more available. Well, how does it do all that? So this is usually where I do a little example, just a real quick, in a nutshell, explanation of what is soil health and why we don't have it. So basically, whatever was growing on our land before we came along, the native vegetation, through photosynthesis, converting light energy into chemical energy, that chemical energy, those exudates, complex sugars, proteins, carbons, was dripped down through the roots. That activated the biology in the soil. The biology refined nutrients, brought them to the roots, formed the rhizosphere around the roots. The plant fed the colonies, the exudate drips and carbons, and the biology fed the plant. It was a natural symbiotic relationship, not too complicated. We came along, cleared the land, and now we're growing wheat or canola or soybean. It's a single species, non-native plant. Does not have the exudate drip to get the biology out of dormancy. Also, we are putting synthetic fertilizer down on that plant as well. So basically how the plant works when we farm that way without a trigger and using synthetic fertilizer, the synthetic fertilizer we put down, and there's not enough biology in our soil to tie it up and convert it, so a lot of it just dissolves in the soil solution. When we have dissolved fertilizer in the soil solution, every time your plant takes a drink of water, it's forced to take salt-based fertilizer, especially nitrogen. So we get a plant that's thirsty, it takes up salt-based fertilizer with every drink of water, that dehydrates the plant, needs more water, takes more water, gets more salt, continual dehydration of this plant. So that's a very ineffective way to use water. It's a very ineffective way to use fertilizer. And it also grows an unbalanced, unhealthy plant. And if we look at the cell structure of that type of plant under a microscope, you will see that the cells are looking like water balloons. They're full, they're fat, they've got leaks between the cells. That's a natural entryway for disease and pests to get into the plant. It's also dripping out water, plant sap and water, so again, a poor way to use water. That's why as we add more nitrogen, yes, we grow more grain, but with this weak cell structure, we get lodging every time. Plants that are under this system have no need to use photosynthesis to make up complex sugars or proteins or any exudates to go down through the roots because it's being force-fed fertilizer already. So therefore, we're growing plants with very simple sugars, low sugars, and simple proteins. Those are the type of plants that insects look for and consume and can eat. So we're inviting the pests in when we're growing them that way. In the soil and under the ground, again, we're not getting the biology out of dormancy, so we're not getting the mycorrhizal fungi going. And over time, we get lower and lower and lower biological levels. We get lower and lower organic matter because when we put fertilizer down, we do get a burst of bacteria going and they're going to need a food source. The plants start feeding them, so they consume the organic matter component of the soil. So over time, what we get is compacted hard soil. And because we have no structure, we get less oxygen in it, and we're creating the environment where the pathogens love. They love compacted, tight soil with no oxygen in them. So we've taken away all the beneficials over time, and what's come in their place is the pathogens, the root rot, root rot, rhizoctonia, phenomyces, clubroot, etc. If we get a good soil health program going on, and that's basically what we've done here. So Crop Aid Plus is basically what it is doing is it's mimicking that native vegetative drip, those native plants that were on our soil before we cleared it. They drip those exudates into the soil. That's what we've developed and put into a jug. So you're going to go on and spray that on with your glyphosate pass or in the fall. And basically we're going to say everything's right in the world, come out and do your job. But everything's not right. We've got hard compacted soil. So basically a lot of that biology can't come out of dormancy. The conditions aren't right. But what will come out of dormancy with that trigger is the mycorrhizal fungi family and several other families in the soil, but that's the main one. Because its role in life is to bust up soil compaction, aggregate it, get oxygen into that soil, and build an environment that the rest of the family of beneficial biology can live in. So, yes?
When you're saying we spray the plus down, it is mimicking the dropping of the exudates into the ground.
Correct.
Does our monocropping, now that we put our product on, will it start dripping exudates down as well?
I'm getting there. That's okay. It's coming.
Okay. It is coming.
So, as I was saying, so we're now that signal. We're that signal. So we're telling the biology, get out, get growing, do your job. So the first path gets the mycorrhizal fungi out. It starts immediately within days breaking up soil compaction. And what that looks like, if we want to simply have a visual, compacted clay platelets like a stack of paper plates. That's the fungi's role to take those paper plates and build a house of cards with them. They glue the edges together with an excretion called glumollin, and that holds that soil together and builds aggregation, and it's not going to recrumble in. And now we have an atmosphere where we have oxygen, we have loose soil, we have water percolating down. So when we come along with the second pass a few weeks later with our first herbicide pass, we give the same signal again. Everything is right, come out of dormancy. But now we have an environment that they can flourish in. And the rest of that biology will come out of dormancy, host to the plant, build its rhizosphere, and go to the end of the season. Now, what happens when we have that going and we're still full on farming? Bacteria always eat first. So even though we've put down a fertilizer program with the drill, the bacteria that we've sparked up is going to consume that applied fertilizer program, digest it, convert it to plant available, go form the colonies and rhizospheres around the roots, but it's going to want to be fed. So before it starts trading nutrition to that plant, it is going to force that plant to, through photosynthesis, turning light energy into chemical energy, that plant's going to jack up its sugar content. It's going to start producing complex sugars and proteins and trading those down through the roots with other carbon exudates and feeding that biology. In return, the biology is going to feed the plant. And now we have that symbiotic relationship going again with a non-native plant. And it will host whatever's growing there for the rest of the season. So it's we can still farm for maximum production, but we can put that plant, that non-native plant, on that symbiotic relationship. When that plant's growing in that condition, when it wants a drink of water, it takes a drink of water. It is not taking anything else. When it wants nitrogen, phos, boron, whatever, it will drip exudates into that colony and call for whatever it needs. It doesn't have a brain, but the plant can drip different exudates to call for different nutrition. So now when we have a plant that can do that, it's using water normally. It's getting nutrition when it wants it, when it needs it, and not at any other time. That plant is not being force-fed nitrogen constantly. So if we look at that cell structure under a microscope, it looks like building bricks. Nice big rectangle, tight bricks, fully packed together, no leaks, no drips. It'll have a nice waxy coating over the stalk and the leaves. That waxy coating acts as a defense mechanism against pests and disease for closing any entryways off. It also helps stop evapotranspiration or water evaporating out of the plant. Again, that cell structure helps against lodging. It helps with everything, right? It's a stronger, healthier, balanced plant. The plant is also full of complex sugars and proteins. Most sap-sucking insects cannot digest complex proteins. So we have a bit of a natural defense now against the pests. Not saying that it'll be enough in a big pressure that you won't have to spray, but in a very light pressure, you might get away with not spraying. But whether you spray or not, again, that's up to your advisors, not us. We're just telling you one of the side effects that happens with a good soil health program. But if you do need to spray for a disease or a pest, that's absolutely fine, because now you have a two-pronged approach. It's like using two different groups of herbicides to tackle a weed issue. We now have a healthy, balanced plant that has some natural defenses against pests and disease, and we have all the tools that we had before in the chemical shed. We put those two together and we have fantastic control over pests and disease using that two-pronged approach. So it's not necessarily about cutting out any fungicides or pesticides at all. It's about making everything work better. So a good soil health program just lifts your production to the next level. It also helps you maximize your investment into your other inputs. So we've talked about the fungicides and the pesticides. How about herbicides? You're going to have a weed growing in nice, healthy soil. It's going to grow better as well. So what we're finding with the weeds is two things. That first flush of weeds, when those seeds are seeing if conditions are right for them to germinate, well, they are going to be right because we fixed that soil. So that first flush is going to be a bigger flush. The majority of the weeds are going to come in the first flush. They're going to be growing very actively. And when we come along with that herbicide, they're going to soak that herbicide in and die dead. What we've had before is weeds growing in tight, compacted soil. They're struggling as well. So when we come over with the herbicide, we're getting half kills, three-quarter kills, and over time we now have herbicide resistance. I can relate, in my mind, herbicide resistance to compaction because it doesn't allow the herbicide to get in and do its job. Same with fertilizer. Again, we are never going to tell you to cut fertilizer. That's a ridiculous statement. I have no idea where you are with your fertilizer programs, and actually fertilizer can go 3 different ways. And it's something that we stress all the time that, fertility recommendations are up to the farmer and his advisor, and a black and white old school soil test. So we're going to change a few things in the soil that will affect the fertilizer program. And like I said, it can go 3 different ways. So on our farm, we were kind of a middle of the road fertility program. We put the crop aid down, and I'm growing probably 10 or 15% more grain than I've ever grown before. But I'm getting a better efficiency out of my fertilizer, because as that biology ties up that fertilizer, it's not leaching, it's not getting tied up to the soil, it's in the biology and it's ready to get traded to the plant, and it's only getting taken up by the plant when the plant needs it. So we're slow releasing to that plant. So we're using it a lot smarter and less of it. So the goal is here, we cut the field in half, got crop aid on one side, not on the other, everything's the same. We may have taken 5 bushel an acre more off the crop aid size, but yet when we do the soil test, we will have increased nutrients on that side, even though we took more grain off. And that's because of the efficiency of the fertilizer program now with a good biology behind it. So getting back to the rates, on our farm, middle of the road guy, got a 10 or 15% yield boost, but I also got that much or more fertilizer efficiency out of my program, so my fertility didn't change. I didn't cut, I didn't add. I'm just growing more grain with the same amount of fertility. So that's great. If I was on a poor piece of land and maybe I wasn't really putting a whole lot of fertilizer with it because it's something that doesn't grow a lot of grain, it had lots of issues, but now that I fixed those soil issues, I can really crank some bushels out of that land. I'm probably going to have to add fertilizer there because we always have to replace what we export. Same old school agronomy. If I need 100 pounds of N to grow a certain target yield and I have 30 in the soil, I'm buying 70. Well, if we now have 40 in the soil, are we buying 60 or are we still buying 70? That's up to the farmer and the advisor, but that's what will show up on the soil test. If we're dealing with a farm that's over the top or a real high nitrogen user, we are simply going to start getting excess amount of nutrients built up into that soil over a few years that you're going to be forced to make a decision there. We've had farms in the past that were real high N rate users, And basically over using crop aid a few times, the advisor has come back and said, hey, you need to cut nitrogen back. We've got like 80, 90, 100 pounds sitting in some of these fields. We can't even grow pulses there anymore. So again, though, that's up to the advisor and the farmer. It's very important that we stress that in the meetings, that it's up to the farmer and the advisor for the fertility, the fungicide, the pesticide, the seed fungicides. That's not us telling you not to use those products. We'll make them all work better. So if you want to use them, that's fine. But do know that the plants have a degree of defense now. So on the seed primer, for instance, you know, if guys are using a Raxil or something like that, but they're growing a variety of grain that really doesn't have an inherent disease problem, they don't have a problem soil, are we just using that so we can sleep good at night? You know, is it just, oh, I got to use something? You know, that's what a lot of farmers will say, I got to put something on it, I'm not just going to put it into the ground. Well, there's a perfect opportunity. We have a lot of guys like that that have switched to our product, because not only can we put nutrition on there, but we can put the biostimulant on there, we can offer some protection in the soil, and there's often an ROI just with our soil, our seed product, where the fungicides are a full preventative. We're not getting an ROI out of that if there was no problem in the first place, and we're less money than those products. So we've got a lot of farmers that switch over to us that were in that camp. They're just, well, I want to use something, and then we explain our product, and they're like, that sounds like a better investment to me, because again, it goes back to that first 30 days.
Would you drop like Raxil?
Again, you know, if we're at a farm meeting, I'm not going to tell you to drop anything. That's a conversation for you and your advisor. But what we've seen, if you want to do it safely and common sense wise, take a field and drop that off, and then do the rest of your farm the way you normally do it. And then watch that field during the season, look at it on the yield monitor. If there's no difference, or maybe it's even a little better.
And also, like I've heard yesterday, that we could put it on the start blend.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, is Darren in here? He was playing with some of that, but yeah, I don't have anyone currently putting it on the starter fertilizer. Okay. It shouldn't be a problem. There's other companies that do it with other liquid products. Yeah, I just didn't hear how that went. That's Darren's department. So anyways, that's usually where I just do that little speech about what we had before we started farming, why it changed, why we don't have the biology, and how we can get it back, and the difference between plants growing on a conventional farming system chemically, or plants growing in that same farming system with good biology underneath it. So just explain those very simply, and then people can understand. It's really not that complicated. All that's missing in our farming system is that signal to tell the biology to get going every spring. That's all that's missing. So we have found a way to replace that, and away we go. We can still farm for maximum production and do whatever we want. So forages, pastures, haylands, I guess the benefits there that we're looking for and what shows up is higher TDN, so that's the total digestible nutrients, like Pat was talking about earlier today. Higher plant sugars and proteins. So again, we're going to force those pastures to do the exact same thing, right? Get them on that symbiotic relationship, forcing them to make complex sugars and proteins. When we do that, they also get a lot higher mineral content. And animals eat for minerals. So you will get selective grazing, because the animals can pick it far sooner than we can ever see it. There is a test, just while we're on the sugars and proteins and stuff, there is a test we can do when we're crop checking. So if you're out there at flag leaf time, especially on wheat or durum, I think it'll show up on the barley too, but I haven't done one of those in a while. But if you take the flag leaf on the treated side and rip it off, wipe it on your tongue, the top and the bottom, it should be nice and smooth and waxy on both sides. Take it off the untreated side. The top should be okay, but the underneath will be rough and like little spears or arrowheads going into your tongue. Then take the treated one and pop it into your mouth and give it a chew. It tastes like grass. It's okay. Spit it out. Then pop the untreated one. It's disgusting. It's gross. It's sour. It's prickly. And again, palatability, right? So your animals see that. They are going to go for what's more palatable and higher minerals every time. So we've had animals eating on split pasture trials. They'll eat on the treated side for a while, then we'll push them across the gate, shut the gate. Now they're into a stand like this, and the stand they came from is eating right down, and then come back the next day, and they've pushed the fence over, and they're back into the one that's eating right down to the ground, not eating the gross stuff standing this high. So it's the same reason your cows stick their head through a barbed wire fence when they're standing in a green pasture. They want to eat out of the ditch where that native biological cycle is still ticking away, and they're eating for minerals and palatability. Same with the forages. You know, for there we're going for tonnage and palatability, better TDN. If you have forages treated and untreated, and you put those bales in a paddock or in a feedlot situation, the animals will eat the treated bale till there's absolutely nothing left of it until they go to the other one. Lots of guys will just say that their animals are not walking around as much. They're laying down a lot more because they're getting more feed per mouthful, so they're eating less and gaining more weight. And we see weight gains comments all the time. And like Pat said, the shinier coats. We got Trevor in the room here. He's on our program with his cattle. Same thing, hey, just anecdotal stuff. Shinier cows, happy, healthy herd, probably less jittery, easier to handle. What makes animals easier to handle is magnesium. So typically in most pastures, we're not getting enough magnesium into those animals. That's why they go after the mineral blocks and stuff like that. Even for humans, you go to the health store, you can buy magnesium pills, and it'll say right on there, calming pills. They calm you down, they take the jitters and stress away. So there's all these other different things you can relate as you're talking, you know. It won't just be the way I do it. You'll have your own little examples. All of you are either using the product or have some experience with it now. So, you know, pop in your own experiences of what you've seen. I always, as a farmer, when I'm talking about the soil health and the biology and how we've knocked it down over the time, well, a great example is if you've ever pulled out a fence line or pushed over a yard site and then seeded that the next year. Well, what happens? Well, that crop's a foot taller, it's dark green, it's awesome. And if we could have the whole field like that, it'd be fantastic. How many years do you farm until you can't tell where the fence line was anymore or the yard site? 3, 4, 5 crops maybe, it's gone. All you've done in that short period of time is knock back that beneficial biology to the same low point as the rest of your field. So those are really good examples to use that every farmer can relate to, the fence line or the yard site. Carrying on with the forages, again, we're the less compaction, healthier feed, animals eat less, gain more weight, the selective grazing we talked about. The ingredients in the Crop Aid Plus, again, we're using that lignin extract. That lignin extract, as we explained, comes from the pulp mill. So again, it's that fresh carbon. Plant-based carbon is the key thing here. So I know there's lots of companies out there selling carbons and humates and fulvics and all this stuff. But if we look back to what got soil health going in the first place, what was it? It was those plants, those native plants dripping down what? Plant-based carbons to the biology. Those carbons aren't contacting all the biology in the soil, but the signal that comes from living carbon does. So it's very much the signal from plant-based carbon, fresh carbon, that triggers the biology out of dormancy. So the lignin component out of our product very much mimics that native drip, and we've added the micronutrients there, the boron, the iron, the manganese, and the zinc. That is not there as a fertilizer. That is part of the signal. We are specifically targeting and adding to the signal to tell the families of biology that refine boron, iron, manganese, and zinc. We're specifically targeting them and making sure that we're getting them going as well, because those 4 micros are very essential for the crops that we grow as broadacre farmers. So it's that signal. So when we compare that to sources of carbon that are on the market, that are mineral-based, million-year-old stuff, no energies, not saying they don't do a great job, but they don't do as good a job as the ingredient. plant-based beneficial biology to come out of dormancy, we need to use plant-based ingredients. Rates and timing for the bio, 2 to 3 applications a year. Standard program is 2. We'll talk about the 3 applications at the end of this. First pass is typically with the pre-burn herbicide, your glyphosate. Can be injected in row with liquid fertilizers at seeding time. It can go on in the fall. It can go on with 1034 if you're injecting that into the soil. If you're putting 2800 down with a kit or a drill or at its own at seeding time, you can mix it with that. Huge window of opportunities to get the first pass down. If you're just not going out there at all, then it would be at first herbicide pass when the sprayer gets out there. The second pass is typically that first herbicide pass when the sprayer's out for the second time. It can be tank mixed with herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, foliar fertilizer. We did mention the fall application. You can put it down in the fall, so if you're spraying Fierce or something like that, some chemical that you put down in the fall that has the residual so you're not pre-burning, it can go in the fall. It'll still be perfectly fine in the spring. It's 250 mils per pass. If you are doing a fall application for like winter wheat or fall rye, you would spray it just before you seed. And then the second pass for that crop would be your herbicide pass the following year. For the forage crops, pasture hay, rates and timing, because most pastures are not even conducive to run a ground sprayer over top, we're typically airplaning, so that's an expensive procedure. On the pastures and pastures only is where we recommend the 500 mil rate. And we highly recommend to mix it with the Rebound product, just because most pastures are very deficient on nutrition. So anytime we are out there anyways and we got an opportunity to put some nutrition on a pasture, it gives us great results. So that combination is a real good result on the pasture. I believe that's how you do it, Trev, with the Rebound as well? Yep. Spring application, when the plants are actively growing and just starting to green up and we can still get good soil contact. So usually sometime in May when things are just starting to green up nice. And if you wanted to do it or can do it a second time, say you're going to do the split rate of 250, then it would be after first cut or first graze, depending what you're doing there. Again, can be mixed with herbicides, fungicides, insecticides. We do have that jar test is always recommended. That's just for a peace of mind for the farmer. If you're following our labels and our instructions now, we're not worried about any issues in any sprayers anymore. We had basically 0 issues this year with the formulation. We've got that formulation even better for 2026 coming up. So, but there are times when farmers are doing things off-label, putting chemicals together that maybe aren't supposed to go together. So, and if we know a guy's using some really poor water, if he's a little uncomfortable about the mix, then help him do a jar test. It's just for peace of mind. And if there is some kind of a reaction in the jar, that's when we talk to Fisher and we get it sorted out. Adjusting water pH with Crop Aid citric acid. Like any other chemicals, Crop Aid likes a certain pH range. It seems to work the best and get along with everybody in the spray tank the best when the pH is right. So when you're using a glyphosate, a glufosinate, or a Diquat, with or without Crop Aid, doesn't matter. Those 3 chemicals like it on the acidic side, so 5 to 5.5 pH. All the other chemistry out there likes it a little more neutral, closer to 6.5. So those 3 products there, again, whether you are or are not using Crop Aid, very important that you have water pH 5 to 5.5 if you want those products to work the best. And then usually I take this opportunity to give a little free advice. So when we're talking about glyphosate, glufosinate, or Diquats, especially the glufosinate. So glufosinate is your Liberty, like a Liberty product that you'd spray on your canola. A lot of guys will have trouble with that product and it won't work good. They don't get a good weed kill. And they're never sure why. Well, was the weather too cloudy or what? for all the experience, there's lots of people that come to us for help with their chemistry just because we're pretty good at it. And even though they're not crop aid clients, we'll still help guys get things working on their farms, no problem. So on the glufosinate, what we found over time is if you're using cold well water right into the sprayer, you're not going to get a good result. Glufosinate likes warm water. It likes acid conditions around 5 pH, and it likes very low TDS water. If we have 1250 TDS water and it's cold out of the well, you're not going to get good results out of your Liberties or your glyphosate. They like warm, low TDS water around 200 and the right pH. The Diquat is a little different animal. So the other two work systemically, so they soak into the plant and translocate and do their job. Diquats are for torching your crop down, burn down, killing things off so we can get in there and harvest. What they do is they're a contact chemical. So it goes on the surface of the plant and it bursts the cells and then the sun dries the plant out. However, we can make that product work quite a bit better. It likes that 5 pH. Diquat could even go down to about 4.5. And we'll talk about our citric acid here in a moment, but if you use citric acid to Diquat to lower the pH, it works way better. And the reason is citric acid is a organic acid, so we talked about that with the EDTAs. So organic bond around the Diquat and every molecule in the spray tank. When you spray it on the plant, it absorbs into that plant so fast that we can burn from the outside in and the inside out. And on our farm, where we do trials, and customers have done the same thing, where they'll use citric acid and then they'll go out with a spray load with no citric acid. On lentils, on my place, it's about 4 days to harvest difference. And what I'm waiting for is those green stems so they don't gum up my knife on the combine. I can go in 4 days earlier if I use a few cents an acre of citric acid. Mixing and handling, just follow the labels of the chemicals you're using. So you're going to spray Crop Aid Plus with 3 other chemicals, maybe a dry flowable, whatever. Simply follow your chemical guide. Whatever it says to do, mixing order, all that, you do that. All throw Crop Aid Plus in last. Like every other chemical, we want at least half a tank or more of water. Container sizes, 10-liter jugs, 500 or 1,000-liter totes. Again, all product is delivered to farm. And now we'll go into the foliar fertilizers. We just have 2 foliar fertilizers, trying to keep things simple. So macronutrients, of course. The micronutrients are all in that EDTA form, except the boron. We add plant-based amino acids. You can use animal or plant. Again, we're trying to work with plant biology, and plant-based amino acids are also a pretty good biostimulant. So we want to add that to our program mid-season. We'll explain that in a little bit. We got 2 formulations. We got Rebound 71305 and a React 43610. So the difference is the Rebound is higher in nitrogen and phos and has a little bit of sulfur in it, and the React is lower in nitrogen and phos, but it has the potash in it and it's a high sulfur blend. So typically the Rebound is used for early growth cereals and pulses. The React is used on canola at all times and late season cereals. And then now, this is probably a good time to talk about foliar fertilizers. So we can go through these bars and then explain them a bit. So foliar fertilizers, they provide important nutrients at critical growth stages, includes nutrients not available in the soil, helps optimize nutrients that improve plant health, and provides nutrients not available at high stress times. So if we got cold, wet soil, we're not going to be taking phos up, but we can put it through the leaf. If we got a drought going on, we're probably not taking up a lot of fertilizer, so we can feed it through the leaf. So go on at times when the roots can't do it. High stress times include too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry, hail. Foliar fertilizers in general 8 to 20 times more effective than soil applied fertilizers. All that means is if you put a pound of phos in the soil and a pound of phos through the leaf stuff is way more effective and available because we're putting it right into the plant. For us to put that in the soil, go through a biological breakdown, deal with the soil loss and tie up and leaching, and then try and get it up to the plant, there's a lot more loss there. You can't replace a soil applied fertilizer program with foliars, but it's just explaining there that the bit that you do put down with the foliars is really effective. Yes?
On a hail event, what would you do on your crop?
Okay, on a hail event, what we found most growers are doing is they're going out with a shot, a 250 ml shot of the Crop Aid Plus and a liter of Rebound. And the reason we're using the Rebound is it's high in phos. Phos is energy. Energy heals plants. So if we've got a plant that just went through a hailstorm, it's all open and wounded, it's very susceptible for diseases to move in. And we want that plant to heal up and rebound so that it can, still yield as much as possible. So a lot of guys using that mix, they'll collect whatever they're collecting on hail insurance, but at the end of the day, they're still getting a pretty decent crop out of it because it does come back just incredibly fast with a shot of the Crop Aid Plus and the Rebound. A lot of guys will just go on with the Rebound, but if you really want to maximize a hailstorm or a recovery from a hailstorm, it's both. Frost would be similar as well. Anytime you've got big damage. We have lots of farmers that will come to us and buy Rebound in the summertime and just a little bit because the neighbor has drifted a chemical onto their crop and it's all leaning over and hurting. And they'll just spray that headland or that side of the field with a liter of Rebound and it just comes right back. So whatever the stress may be. So that's why we called it Rebound. It's extremely good for stress situations. A lot of farmers will also add Rebound to chemicals that are stressing their crops out. So herbicide stress. So one of those would be Roundup Ready canola. So if you're growing a Roundup Ready canola and when you add the Roundup to that plant, it has to take it in and metabolize it and get rid of it. It sets that plant back for about a week. It's really not growing much. It's just processing that glyphosate and getting it out. If we add Rebound to that crop just takes off. It doesn't skip a beat. It just continues to grow right through that phase and it doesn't get that stress. Granular Sencor is another one that really torches lentils. There's not a lot of herbicide options for lentils, so granular Sencor is definitely a popular one. A liter or a half liter of Rebound with granular Sencor and you don't get leaf burn. It works fantastic. No setback in the crop and it definitely adds bushels in the bin. Low salt index on the foliars. Again, we talked about nutrients, plant available forms. Compatible, we say with most, but really I don't know anything that you can't mix the foliars with. It mix with everything. Easy to pump and handle. Very important, non-corrosive. We're not like a 2800. There's no biuret, that impurity that's in 28 that's so corrosive. We have non-biuret ingredients, so non-corrosive, won't cause any rust. Easy to apply and extremely cost-effective. And usually it's right about there. I'll also mention that it's manufactured in Saskatchewan, so we're not importing it and hauling water across the ocean. We're very economically priced because we are a local manufacturer. The Rebound 71305 plus micronutrients, boron, copper, iron, manganese, moly, zinc, fortified with the plant-based amino acids and peptides. So the amino acids, why we add those? Amino acids jack up photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, again, responsible for converting light energy into chemical energy. It's the motor of the plant, it's the energy. So the more we can do that, the more yield we can build, the better, healthier, robust, stronger plant. Also, amino acids, as I mentioned before, are a biostimulant. The plant will take those amino acids, push them down through the root within 12 hours, and exudate them into the soil to pull more biology around its root and try and get more fertility up the shoot. So the way our foliar fertilizers are designed, the micronutrients in them aren't in there in such a way where we're going to fix a big deficiency. They're meant to balance your plant for about 3 weeks. So if we can spray that on the crop, balance that plant, A balanced plant can pull more out of the applied fertilizer program that we put down in the spring. So if you have an imbalanced plant, say that plant's full of nitrogen, well, its ability to pull up boron or phos or something else is limited because it's already chocker full with nitrogen. If we can balance that plant off, it can now pull more out of the applied fertilizer program. Again, making better use of that biggest bill on the farm, which is the fertility bill. So there's quite a bit of science in behind the foliars. Again, those amino acids, meant to jack up the photosynthesis. They also get traded down into the root within 12 hours and give another hit or another signal to the biology in the soil to get going and ramp up nutrient production. So again, using that plant-based ingredient. The React 43610, again, micronutrients fortified with the amino acids. And we talked about the use of that. So it's higher in boron and sulfur. Usually guys growing canola have more than enough nitrogen and phos on those crops, but it's the sulfur and the boron, or the potash and the boron. Potash and the sulfur, that's really important, and boron. So we have extra boron in the React. It's about twice as much as the Rebound. And again, that potash and sulfur, very good for the canola. The sulfur is also very good for late stage cereals. So if we're shooting for high protein at the terminal, a shot of sulfur at early flowering stage will definitely tick the protein meter over a little better. And foliar fertilizers are all about timing. So there might be a bit of myth out there. I'll just throw some fertilizer foliar out there and we'll get a better yield. It depends. Foliar fertilizers give you a good ROI and a good yield result when there's a stress situation. So that could be herbicide stress, again, weather, hot, cold, wet, dry, the hailstorm. Those types of situations, that's when the plant is struggling and it's struggling to pull nutrition out of the soil, and we're going to foliar feed it and get it through that time until we get another, better conditions or a rain or whatever. That's when the foliars really pay off. If you've got a Cinderella year and you've got good nutrition under your plant, foliars may not give you much of a bang for your buck on a year like that, other than having a balanced, healthy plant that can ward off diseases and pests a little better. But as far as yield goes, you may not see that. If you're looking for yield on cereals, it's all about timing. 3 to 5 leaf stage is when that plant is deciding how many rows I'm going to put on this head. How much nutrition do I got? What's my conditions, my growing conditions? So if you put down a foliar, all of a sudden the growing conditions are awesome and my nutrition level is balanced and full, I'm going to put an extra row on that head. That's how we get more yield with a foliar. If we go after the 5 leaf stage, that's decided. The seed rows are decided. You're not going to build any more seeds after that. Later stage spraying, so flag leaf to flowering or early heading, that is going to give you quality and bushel weight and fat kernels. So it still might be a yield bump in weight, but not the number of kernels. If we're talking about canola, really the sweet spot in canola for yield is full cabbage just as elongation starts. I know that's a small window, but through all our trial work, when that's full cabbage stage and just starting to elongate but doesn't have the bloom on that bolt yet, that is where we're getting the highest yield bang for a foliar fertilizer. However, you can put foliars on canola with good results at any stage, really up to about a third, 30% flowering. Rates and applications, 1 liter an acre is the recommendation. Applications are totally up to the farmer and what he feels is going to help his growing conditions the best. A lot of guys will just throw it in every time the sprayer leaves the field or the yard other than burn off. On our farm, I will go on my Liberty Pass with the canola, so that's a fairly early stage, 2-3 leaf. And then I'll go again at what would be fungicide time. So kind of just before flowering or in there, I'll go on with a shot of foliar, even though I'm not fungiciding in that Rosetown area because we're usually too dry. On the cereals, I will do, when I'm out with my first herbicide pass, so that's 3 to 5 leaf, so I'm going for yield, I'll use the Rebound. And then typically we don't go into the derm again with the sprayer in our area because again, we're not doing a fungicide, too dry. But we just mix it with water and do a shot at flag leaf time because I want heavy, plump, high quality grain. So it can be mixed with herbicides, fungicides, insecticides. Container sizes, again, 10 liter jugs, 500 or 1,000 liter totes, all delivered to farm. And finally, the citric acid. So chemicals require correct water pH, and not all water is equal. Guys are using, from town, well water, rain, dugouts, sloughs, rivers. Typical pH of that kind of water, 7 to 10 pH. Ideal range, again, for glyphosate, glufosinate, and Diquat, 5 to 5.5. The other chemicals is around 6.5. So whether or not you're using any crop aid products, having good water is essential to get the biggest bang out of your dollars that you're spending on chemicals. So got to make sure the pH is right. Also, most chemicals do not like high TDS. It ties up the actives in the chemicals. So the reason citric acid is very unique because it not only lowers the pH of water, but it conditions water. What citric acid is it's from citrus. So it's lemon and lime rinds. That's where it comes from. And it's organic. So we have an organic acid. So again, like the EDTAs we talked about, it's a chelator. Chelator meaning it puts that organic bond around the molecules. So if we throw about a half liter of this powder into the sprayer as we start filling it, it's going to put an organic bond around every molecule in your spray tank. Your chemicals, everything you put in there, your water. So in the case of our farm, we use well water. That's about 1,200 TDS, so it's not very great water, high TDS. I put 2 scoops, about the equivalent of a half liter, into my 1,600 gallon case and retest that water. It's about 200. Now I didn't take it out or put it through an RO machine. It's still in there, but it has an organic bond around it, and then it's hidden. It's even hidden from the water testing equipment. So the beauty about that is 2 things. It's hidden from your chemicals, so it won't tie up the actives in your chemicals. The chemicals are hidden from it. If you are using a couple different chemicals that might have been a bit antagonistic, or maybe antagonistic with your water, snotting up the tips a little bit, this will cure that. But also remember, everything's going to have an organic bond around it. So again, anything with an organic bond, super easy to get through the waxy coating of a leaf. So we get better chemical absorption, better value for our dollars spent on our chemicals, better kills. So again, we're not cutting anything, but we're just making the chemicals that you're buying work better. So again, it ties up the TDS in the water, increases the efficacy of the chemicals, and prevents adverse tank mix issues due to high pH and TDS. So it's a very unique product, and it works extremely well. Comes in a 20-liter pail. It's the exact same citric acid powder that you'll find on the ingredients of most processed food. We get it from the same plant. And it looks like icing sugar and smells like oranges. We put a little scoop in there so that we can recommend how many scoops to use, and we also put a pH kit on the lid so that you can test your water. Then we go to some pictures just so we can explain and put a visual behind what we've been talking about. So we got a few examples here. I don't use them all. I'll use a couple and then skip ahead, depends on the group. So here's a farm out by Raymore, Saskatchewan. This was back in 2020. First year using our product, he split a section in half. It was canola growing on corn stubble. So this is 55 days after the first application. And you can see on the right-hand side, we have darker soil. The reason it's darker is biology sequesters a lot of carbon. Carbon is black. So if we're onto a lighter colored loamy soil like this, we are going to change the color quite rapidly. You can see that the untreated side is fine particles and dusty dry, and the treated side is dark. It's got aggregation, like tiny little balls. We could make a mud ball with it. And the real interesting thing here also, 2 things actually, the smell of the soil. So we could smell that darker treated soil, and it smelled like mom's garden soil, and the other stuff has 0 smell, the non-treated. And that smell That peat moss smell is just the flora and fauna of the soil. It's all the living components, the biology, the bacteria, the fungi, the earthworms, everything. It's just that smell and the exudates that the biology gives off. Where on the other side we have no smell because we have very little biological activity. An interesting thing here is if we look at those corn stalks from last year, if we look at the side that was untreated or the control, we still have the root hairs on there. If we look at the side that has crop aid on it, the roots are almost all completely broken down, refined into nutrition and organic matter and put back into the soil. So trash breakdown is another component of good biology. Here's one down in Pontex in southern Saskatchewan. This is 2017 amidst the full-on drought. Typical clay, when it gets dry, comes out like cinder blocks. And even where we had the product treated, I mean, you're not making a mud ball there, it was dry. But at least we could dig it and crumble it with our hands, and it had some structure to it. So even in the middle of a drought, it was still actively working and doing its thing. This is one on our farm, 6 years into it on a split field. So you can just see the clay. This is in June, so I mean, we're coming out of the droughts of the early 2000s, but we still had enough snow. The land still got moisture in it. But you can see the untreated side just come up like clods, and they got those compaction layers in them. I like to call it shale. It looks like the Canadian Shield. It's got all these angled layers of compaction in there. And it has a little bit of a white clay look to it as it starts to dry out on the tailgate. The other side is just crumbly garden soil with a great smell to it, and just it falls off the shovel and just blows out on the tailgate. No lumps in it. It's beautiful. And here's another one. This is in Minton. So again, wet conditions in clay. So where we have the control, it comes out like a big football. It's shiny. You can see the compaction layers in there again, like I call the shale look. And on the treated side, it was just falling off the shovel. It's just crumbly. You can make a mud ball with it, but it doesn't stick to your hand. It didn't stick to the shovel. On the control side, we had to kick that off with our boots because it was stuck to the shovel. And if you made a mud ball with your hand on that side, it was all sticking to your fingers. So that magnesium, sticky, tight soil. Here's one, actually. I don't know if Trevor's still here. No, gone. This is on his farm. This was put down in 2022 in the end of June, I believe. And then Darren Fisher and I went out and did a crop check. I believe it was the August long weekend, so beginning of August. So it was down about a month or 5 weeks. No rain between when it went down, full drought. There's very little plant matter on that tailgate because the grasshoppers were absolutely crazy and they ate everything. But where we look at the control, very light colored, white, powdery, gutless pasture land down by Lake Diefenbaker. And on the right side, a month later, you could see the color change and the structure, and the roots of all those plants growing there they look like ponytails or dreadlocks. That's the biology, that rhizosphere around the roots, holding soil to the roots. Much more moisture in there. There's a significant difference. So then, you can talk about this as much as you want, but really I just skipped through a lot of stuff. This one's interesting, North Dakota. You can see the square in the middle of the field. So this was a biomass, infrared measuring biomass. This is in a drought as well. The red things are hilltops. There was nothing growing there. But you can very easily see that rectangle sprayed in the middle of the field. So that's measuring leaf matter or biomass. So it's quite a bit more crop there where the Crop Aid Plus was. This is in Gulva, North Dakota, again during a big drought. You can see on the control side the absolute concrete chunks that we tried to dig without breaking the shovel. There's no breaking those apart. And on the other side, still had some pretty hard pieces in there, but we could dig it and we could crumble it a little bit, but zero moisture, nothing growing in that field. But again, product is working even without enough moisture to grow a crop. This one here is also Raymore. Now this was reversed. I believe it was canola or canola stubble possibly where the corn was growing in. First year using it. And yeah, so the untreated side, significantly thinner stalks, less roots, and we had some purpling on the stems, which is going to be some kind of a nutrient deficiency, most likely phos, but it could be a micronutrient as well. On the treated side, we had much healthier stalks, thicker, better roots, no purpling, which means no deficiency. So that biology was able to refine nutrients, bring them to the plant. The plant could drip the exudates and call for what it needed and does not have the deficiency. So huge difference. That's 55 days after the program started. That's just a picture of a nice field. I'll just usually skip through this stuff. You can use what you want out of these slides. I like to use the trials. We don't have too many of them here, but this is in Alberta in 2020. So we had a wheat trial using our whole program, so the seed product, the Crop Aid Plus, and a shot of Crop Aid React. We picked up 4 bushels an acre in the wheat. We did 3 bushels an acre in the peas and 4 bushels on canola. So first year land in a small plot trial farm, replicated. This one's really good here, this trial. This is a 4-year trial at St. Brew up by Humboldt, where they build the Burgo drills. So 4 years in a row on the same pieces of land, on the same plots. It's very interesting because we go from a wet year through some droughts and then back up to a wet year again. So if we look at the bushel an acre increases versus the percent of yield increase is very interesting. Again, talking about those stressors. So first year, again, using the whole program, so seed primer, biostimulant, and a foliar. We picked up 15 bushels an acre on the oats, or a 13% yield increase. The barley was 5.7 bushels, or 10%. The canola was 1.4 bushels, or 4.3% yield increase. We go year 2, drought. Oats only run 33.8. The second year treated plot run 40.3, so we picked up 6.5 bushels, but 19% yield increase. So, you know, when we're comparing apples to apples, this is a poor year. We're picking up 19% yield increase because of a stressor. The year before, we picked up 15 bushels an acre, but it was only a 13% yield increase. So again, when we have a stress involved, we get a bigger result. Barley, 21.7 on the control, 26. We picked up 4.3 or 20% yield increase. Canola only run 14. We had 15.8. We picked up 1.8 bushels, but it's a 13% yield increase for that year. Year 3, little better year. Control running 78.1 on the oats, 84.2. So we picked up about 7 bushels an acre, 8%. Little better year, little less percentage, more bushels though. Barley, 90.7 and 98.4. So we picked up 7.7 bushels or 8.5%. The year before it was 20% on a drought. Canola, we picked up 7.7 bushels on 3-year land and 16.5% yield increase. 4th year land, we put peas in and took the oats out. Just some people wanted to see some pea results, so we swapped the oats out. Peas run 50. We picked up 3.3 bushels an acre or 6.6%. Wheat, we picked up 5.7 or a 10% yield increase. And the canola, we picked up 4.8 or 7.2. So we do oodles and oodles of these replicated yield trials every year. We post them on the website as we receive them. You will see over the years of trialing, we're 2 to 5 bushel an acre increase is very, very consistent for the yield results. For the seed primers, we use a seed lab out of Swift Current. And basically, the deal we have there is just typical farmers bring in their seed samples that they intend on using the following year for seed to see if they're any good for germ and vigor. We get the lab to take some of those samples and then add some of our primer on there. so that we can measure treated and untreated on real life grain samples that are coming into a lab. So the two things to look for, of course, germination and vigor. If we have germ and vigor more than a 10-point spread, so say we got germ at 90 and we got 68 vigor, the recommendation will be to buy new seed. If that is a 10-point spread or less, then that seed is good to use. So the differences here, so this is, you can see it pretty good there. This is flax. So it came in at 76% germ and 60% vigor. And then once treated with our seed product, it was 80% germ and 75% vigor. And if you look at the pictures, you can see what vigor does. Strong, healthy, straight stalks, an even height plant, longer roots, compared to all bent up, skinny. We got one plant there that's dying already. That's vigor. So that primer is fantastic for lifting vigor. And again, we talked about the first best 30 days. You know, you just look at this picture and there's a huge difference here already on whatever that might be. 15 days or something, or not even. This one here is canary seed. It come in at 83 and 68, and after treated was 90 and 82. So there's an example of seed that was out of spec and is now in spec. This one here is barley. So you can see in the Petri dish the rapid and lush growth in the Petri dish versus the control. Again, good germination and the vigor. This seed was pretty good. It come in at 96 germ and 90 vigor, so really good seed. When we lifted it to a 99 and a 96. Here's a great one. This is yellow mustard. Seed come in at 91 and 80, so good seed. And we lifted it to a 93 and an 85. And just look at the difference there. Even crop, thick, straight stems, all the same height. You can see the rhizospheres on the roots. So that's that web-like cocoon that's holding the soil to the roots there, or the growing medium that they used. And if you look at the untreated, that's a poor start for a crop. This is wheat. We'll go to something a little more noticeable. This one here is oats. So again, this come in at 85 and 68, so out of spec, and we got it 90 to 81. So got it back into spec. And again, even crop, thick shoots, and you can see the difference on the root. Even the roots are uniform, long length. You can see the soil sticking to them. Just a fantastic difference there. Huge vigor difference in potential yield already at that stage. This one's very interesting, lentils. This come in at 93 and 58 germ. So it was probably during the dry years and had mechanical damage to it. And once treated, it went to 96, and the vigor lifted from 58 to 80. And you can see in the Petri dish which crop you'd want to be growing. Massive difference. Healthy, all even height, thick stalks, and the untreated is really struggling. And we'll look at one more here. It's the field peas, yellow. Come in at 86 and 73 vigor and lifted to 89 and 82. So again, brought it back into spec, and you can just see that root growth and the shoots and the even crop height. The most often comment we get with guys that use the seed treat product is the crop is out of the ground so fast and it's even like a pool table all over the valleys, the knolls, everything. It's just all up super even. And that's what it does. I'll just skip ahead here. You can go through this. Again, can certainly talk about this stuff at a farm meeting. So University of Alberta, we did some clubroot research with the Crop Aid Plus, and the goal was to reduce clubroot disease. And the reason we did this is we were getting anecdotal feedback that we were having good results on clubroot. So instead of using a farmer testimonial and saying, hey, we get good results on clubroot, We don't do that. We take those anecdotal comments and we take them to the proper research facilities and say, hey, this is what we're seeing, this is what we're doing, what's the science behind this so we can talk about it. So we took this to the U of A, which is the world leader in clubroot research. And first of all, you go through a greenhouse trial to see if there's any merit to your product. And if there is, then you go out onto the real field the following summer. So anyways, this winter we went, or this particular winter in 20, whenever it was, we went to 2020, we went into the greenhouse and we reduced 40%. So then we went, okay, and then they're just saying here that they did it 1 week prior and then the second pass 2 weeks after, and in some instances they added a third application just to try a third application to see if that had any effect. So out in the real fields in the summer, canola yields were increased 14 to 23% in the clubroot infected soils in the two different varieties. So the 14% was a clubroot resistant variety, and the 23%, which was struggling more and had more stress, got lifted 23%. And that was with the third application. And that's where we learned that if you're fighting a specific problem, phenomyces, clubroot, severe compaction, or some other severe stress, that third pass later in the season, kind of fungicide time, definitely pays off. This one is interesting here, biomass. So that's the amount of shoots or stalks and leaves above the ground. They basically cut them off, dry them, and weigh them. Two varieties increased. Again, the clubroot resistant variety, which wasn't struggling as much, we increased the biomass by 35%. And on the non-clubroot variety, 73%. So if you're growing a brassica for a food source or anything for forage and you want more bales, more tons, that's biomass. It's a really good result. We moved to Vigorville and did some more clubroot work on different land. And this was in a drought as well. So clubroots measured with a disease severity index, 0 to 3, and you can read the different ratings there. 0 is clean and healthy, no galls. Number 1 is a few small galls on less than 1/3 of the roots. Number 2 is moderate galling, 1/3 to 2/3, and 3 is a severe galling when we have more than 2/3 of the field infected. So when we did the trial, due to the drought conditions, the severe index was fairly low. It was 1.6 on the control side, and the crop aid plus side was 0 at the end of the season. 0 spore count. We did some work with pea plants as well. This was just some initial trialing, so we didn't really have numbers with it. We were looking at a phenomyces control, because we get lots of feedback with that from pulse growers. And basically they were just telling us that we significantly reduced the disease and increased the biomass. Unfortunately, with the university, we were not able to go out onto a real field that we could find that had enough phenomyces spores and infection to do a proper trial. So that's something we're still working on, is looking for a partner with those kind of trials. So anyways, that's where I kind of wrap it up normally and open it up. Thank everyone for coming and open it up to questions. So I guess if there's any questions from you guys, I'll take them. Looks like everyone's kind of ready for a beer. So anyways, that was the PowerPoint presentation. That's normally how I'd do it if this was a big farm meeting. So, you know, it's important to pay attention to how we're speaking and what we're claiming. Especially with the fertilizer and the chemicals. You know, it's not our job as a soil health company to ever say, you know, cut fertilizer, you don't need a pesticide. That's not our job. That's the advisor's job and the agros and the farmers to figure out. We will help with those decisions if they would like help. We can explain it and educate the advisors. We love to work with them. That's usually the best results when we can sit down with the farm advisor or have them come to these meetings. It's important that they come too, because often we'll send a farmer home super pumped from a meeting like this, and he'll go back to the farm, say, hey, we're using this year, and the agronomist will look at the label and say, there's nothing in here, you're wasting your money. So it's important to educate everyone involved. So we very much appreciate when the advisors show up to the farm meetings too. So if you're putting on a meeting, make sure you invite the farmer, tell him to bring his advisor along, his agronomist. The more people that know what we're doing and understand why we're doing it and how we're doing it, the better it is for everybody. So with that, I think we'll wrap it up. So again, thanks everyone for coming. I know it's getting late now.